ladies and gentlemen? Yep.
Yep.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, there's been a significant turn of events over the last 24 hours in relation to the 6-day lockdown that was implemented under the Emergency Management Act. The changes that have resulted occurred after information had been provided that has since turned out to not be correct. We've taken this matter very seriously. We know that people are disappointed with the circumstances, and we are disappointed and concerned that we have had to take this course of action. In response to that, South Australia Police have formed a task force called Task Force Protect, which will be investigating all of the circumstances relating to the information that was provided to contact tracing teams and the circumstances which have led to us being in the position we are now, so that we can make all proper inquiries. I'd like to hand over to the leader of that task force, Assistant Commissioner Peter Harvey, who will give you some further details.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, by way again of introduction, Peter Harvey is my name. I'm the Assistant Commissioner in charge of Crime Service. I've been asked by the Commissioner to conduct an investigation into the circumstances leading up to information provided to and utilised by SA Health in making decisions in relation to the impact of the directions that have been issued. It is clear to date that we have a very strong belief that at least one person has not told the truth. The obligation upon me is to investigate that further. So, in support of that, I've formed a task force of detectives from within Crime Service and crime analysts. The task force at this stage is 20 detectives and analysts in strength. It started 2 hours ago and will be continually running until the investigation is complete. The unusual step in this one is that the task force reports directly to me, such as the importance of getting to the bottom of this, and also so I can be a contact for you in any queries you have about where we might be heading. The task force will report to me twice daily, and I have every confidence that the experience of detectives that I've put together will get to a prompt result, at least from a clarity perspective. It's important though, amongst the high emotion that surrounds this whole circumstance, that my investigation is thorough and fair. So from this point on, we'll be looking at what legislation may or may not have been breached. It's complex. It could span any number of potential lots of legislation, from the criminal law through to the Emergency Management Act or the public health sort of focused acts. So I won't go into that in great detail today. It's quite a piece of legislation to unpick, but that's why we have probably some of the most experienced detectives involved. And across Crime Service, I also have at my disposal detectives from major crime, public protection and our financial crime branch. So I'm confident we'll get to an answer in a fast time frame, and I'll be the point of contact into the future. So you'll appreciate this is an operational matter at the moment now. There's not much more that I can actually say today, but I will be keeping you as appropriate informed on where we head.
In terms of this Woodville pizza bar man, is there any suggestion of criminal behaviour beyond his life?
So I will make no comment to any other behaviour that may or may not be alleged or suspected. I'm approaching this whole thing with an open mind and a laser beam approach to the lead up to the declaration.
The Premier's already couched this as lying. He said he's fuming about it.
Sorry, I can't hear.
The Premier's already couched this as a lie, and he's commented that he's fuming about this man telling a lie. You're not putting it in those terms at this stage, so was that unhelpful of the Premier to couch it in those terms?
So not unhelpful at all. In fact, it's the Premier and anyone has a right to describe it in any way. What I'm saying to you is I have to approach it with a fresh and open mind, and that's the way I'll approach it. And I think that you would appreciate and expect that from professional detectives, so that is the approach we'll take.
Is there any update on whether contact tracers are classified as authorised officers and thus can be charged under the Emergency Management Act or the Public Health Act?
There'll be no stone left unturned, so if you give me some of the more detailed questions you have about legislation or particular individuals, you can feed them through our media section, and I'll try and answer those for you so everyone gets the same picture. I understand there will be huge interest, but the obligation I have is just as vital that it's a very precise, fair and ideally a timely investigation hence the considerable and unusual steps we're taking to form such an experienced task force, but also one that reports directly and accountable to me on a daily basis.
Will this
How
be
sure are
released
you
in
that there's
full?
been criminal behaviour, or do you think it may have been someone who was just worried about losing income?
Well, that's the whole purpose of the investigation, and it goes straight to the core of my comments that I must conduct a fair, open-minded investigation. People will have their views, but my obligation is totally different to being caught up in the emotion. So I'm very pleased to say that I have the best detectives available on this.
Is he a minor or an adult?
That I don't know at this stage. The whole investigation plan is with my superintendents at the minute.
You don't know his age?
I don't know it at the minute.
Will the findings of this be fully released?
So I will keep you, as I would with any operational matter, updated if there's an outcome. And given the unusual circumstances here, I'll make a judgment call about what I think will be quite valuable to what is really a very, very relevant topic for the community. So it'll be unusual, this one. I will keep you updated.
Will you also be investigating the actions and approach of the contact tracing team that conducted the interview?
There'll be multiple lines of inquiry. My focus is on any potential criminal activity, either by act or omission, and naturally that will include the examination of and assessment of any associated process, including the contact tracing.
Are you looking at whether a crime is actually being committed in terms of telling the lie, or do you think there are broader criminal questions?
Now, that's almost the same question you asked
Yeah.
before, so I'll just say this: I'll look at it with an open mind against all the suites of legislation we have, and the importance of this is not lost on the South Australia Police. The approach by to me by the Commissioner is an unusual one in this circumstance. So the gravity of this is not lost on anyone, and so the focus, resourcing, and accountability for this is paramount.
The Commissioner said earlier today that he wasn't aware of any anything in any provisions under which this man could be charged. Could this be seen as a very thorough way of finding out if it's possible to charge him?
Well, see, I will say again, I am approaching this with an open mind, not with the goal of charging, but seeing if there are charges that can be laid. Now, if in the end there are, well, there will be. If there aren't, there won't be. But either way, this is a very, very big lens over the sufficiency of legislation, what it might mean into the future. These are unusual circumstances and maybe never been able to foreseen by the people who write legislation, but we're not confined to one act. And so, as I said, very competent investigators and prosecutors and intelligence analysts are looking at this for me. So the thirst for knowledge is there. It exists with me as well. So we're looking at it, and I think this is a very, very important step for us.
Do you think this individual, in the information they obviously imparted, was aware of what the consequences of that information would be in terms of the broader state lockdown?
Of course, I'm not going to presume anything. I'm now going into what the investigators will look at. And I'm going to tread a very fine line about what I can and can't say. As with any other investigation that you've all been involved with and present at, there are limits, there are fairness provisions for any person in the state. That's the centre of our justice system. I'll balance that with your thirst for knowledge and hopefully meet your needs, whilst meeting the fair and proper needs of people who may or may not have committed any offence.
Is the ATO involved at all?
So we're certainly working with the Australian Federal Police and other agencies because it's not, but that's not unusual. There's a suite of different lines of inquiry, but we are focused on the outcome in a timely way.
So you're looking at potentially other criminal charges that don't relate to the lie at all, other things to do with this individual?
I'm looking for any sort of indication of guilt or innocence, and we'll make the case if it exists or not, like we would with any other case. It may well be there is no criminal offence, and as I've said probably 4 or 5 times now, that's the point of the investigation.
But I mean, separate to the lie, you're investigating any other things to do with this particular
I
individual?
won't comment on anything that's operational.
This may be one for the Commissioner, but
Commissioner.
So is that Commissioner?
Commissioner,
Thank you.
thank you.
this individual has obviously now been, not named, but certainly shamed publicly, and the Premier has, obviously expressed his anger, called him a liar. We're obviously getting to the bottom of that, but putting the investigation side of things aside, we've got an entire state affected by this situation. Are you concerned for the welfare of the individual?
That's certainly a consideration. I think it's fair to say that we're satisfied that the contact tracing team was not told the truth in the first instance, and that set in chain a course of events that sees us where we are today. I'm sure the individual concerned may be reflecting on the statements they made. So their welfare, as with any investigation, it will be a part of our considerations.
Do you know if he's a minor or an adult?
I actually haven't been provided that information. The information so far has been contained with the contact tracing team, and we've been provided recommendations from health based on the information they've been able to obtain. The identity of this person at that point in time was not a relevant consideration for us. The information obtained by the contact tracing team was.
Commissioner, are you able to confirm whether the contact tracing team are authorised officers?
They are authorised officers under the Emergency Management Act. One of the aspects of clarification required is whether or not their authorised officer status under the Public Health Act is applicable when they're acting in accordance with the Emergency Management Act. So that's one area of clarification that we sought, and probably a relatively straightforward piece of work, but given the amount of activities that have occurred over the last 24 hours, it's not something that's been directly addressed at this point in time.
Commissioner, just switching to the easing of restrictions, is there an update on the one person per household per day shopping rule, and will that be lifted on Sunday?
The restrictions for one person per day shopping remains in effect until midnight Saturday, and then that will be lifted.
And will the new direction revoke unrestricted trading hours, or will shops still be able to trade until midnight, like supermarkets?
And that was actually being looked at by Assistant Commissioner Bamford, who is the direct support to me as the state coordinator. I know that there were some queries in relation to unrestricted shopping hours. I don't know the answer to that, but it was being examined in terms of the final amendments to this current direction to allow people to do a few things that they haven't been able to do.
And speaking about tonight and tomorrow, where does exercising and leisure start? What's the difference between swimming and sunbaking, or walking and picnicking?
I think the exercise and leisure started at about 11:35 when we made the announcement today. We saw that there was quite an influx of people moving into parks and beach areas. We are asking people to abide by the general principles of this current direction, the stay-at-home direction, until midnight on Saturday. The concession is there now that people may participate in exercise with other members of their household outside of the house, and we'd simply ask people to be reasonable in their approach. Obviously, given the circumstances, we're going to take a very measured approach, but we want the support of the community to get us through to midnight on Saturday.
So
we're confident we'll get there.
there's no limit on where people can go to exercise in the
We've asked for people to exercise reasonableness. We don't want to see people, every person flocking down to the beach on a 35-degree day. We want to see people giving us the opportunity to get through to Saturday, allow the contact tracing work to be done, which needs to be done in relation to the pizza shop situation. There is still work to be done. We have provided additional resources to SA Health's contact tracing team. There are additional police officers going in to aggressively pursue all lines of inquiry and wrap that up as quickly as possible. The direction was put in place to ensure public safety. There are still dimensions of that are relevant, so we're asking for people's support for a very short space of time before we get back to normal, as close to normal as possible.
Final question, please.
Commissioner,
Final question, please.
the advertiser's website's been flooded with reader questions. Can I just
Sure.
throw a list of things from Sunday?
Yep, go.
Fast food and takeaway, golf,
Sorry, one at a time. Fast food and takeaway is still closed until midnight Saturday.
golf from Sunday,
From Sunday, golf is back on.
moving house,
Moving house from Sunday.
food courts open.
This is all from midnight Saturday.
Yep,
Sunday, effective Sunday.
food courts open.
Don't know about food courts, but what was provided for prior to this stay-at-home direction will be allowed.
Construction and home renovations,
Will be commencing from Sunday.
childcare,
From Sunday.
and what about community sport?
That's one that I'll have to refer you to the website once my team have had a chance to upload the details. I don't specifically know the answer to that.
Okay, and just on going to the beach, I know you're asking people to be reasonable. It's going to be pretty hot tomorrow. Will you be sending patrols to clear out people who are just sunbaking?
We just want people to do the right thing. We've had a really great relationship with the community over the course of our COVID-19 response. We'd like to maintain that. Please honour the principles of the direction. Even with the directions that come into effect on Sunday, we are still asking people to limit their discretionary activities. we've done really well so far as a community. Let's just get over this period of time. We're aiming for the 1st of December for the date that we're going to go back to where we were on about the 15th of November, which I think was a pretty good spot in comparison to many other jurisdictions in Australia and around the world. And we're also hoping to be able to open up the border to Victoria on that day. So we're not that far away. We're 8 days away from significant changes.
I was just going to ask on a lighter note, does this mean your daughter's wedding can now go ahead, restrictions are easy?
It might not surprise you to know that I've had text messages from her asking that very question. I think there's a few mechanics that have to be worked out. So that's another question I don't have the answer to.
Was that scheduled for Saturday or Sunday?
5th of December, but just with the planning and arrangements, we've made the decision to cancel it.
And can I just ask quickly, sorry, elective surgery and playgrounds, just what's happening in those? With those?
The elective surgery question is best referred to SA Health, and playgrounds are, I would suggest, available as of Sunday. It's a place for people to gather, and we don't want people gathering at this point in time.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.